In this video, we digitized the head of a skeleton from Vincent van Gogh. John and I digitized this design live, so if you want to see the full live stream, make sure to click that link in the description. The first thing, I'm going to load the backdrop because I'm keeping John in anticipation. Now, this is the artwork that I'm going to do today. First thing that I'm going to do, I just want to set the height. So that's why I clicked under the properties. It was fairly simple to import a backdrop. All you have to do is load your backdrop. Now, I am working under the select backdrop so that I can change the properties. We're going to leave it at 4 inches height because I want this design to be 4x4. And one of the first colors that I'm going to do is going to be black. Now, before we get started, I do want to change a couple settings. We are going to disable the snap to anchors because I won't need them for this design, but it is a very useful setting or feature. Now, we are also going to disable recipes. The software has amazing recipes, but because this is going to be more of an artistic design, we don't necessarily need them. There's not really going to be any solid, crazy outlines. So we're just going to select no recipe, and it's just going to take off all of the underlays, all of the pull compensation, and all of the things that save you, well, a lot of time when it comes to digitizing. And the last thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to change my auto trim settings. So right now they are at 3mm, but I do want to be able to jump a little bit more. So instead of 3mm, I'm going to do 10mm. We're going to get started with creating the black outlines. And the reason why I like doing the black outlines is because just the way that in which I imagine drawing, you usually start out with a sketch. So it's just easier to do it this way. And I'm going to be utilizing the run tool as well as the classic satin. Now, one more change that I'm going to do is I'm going to put the classic satin at 1mm because we're going to be working with just a little bit more spacing. And then I have my hotkey. So if I press 1, I'm going to do the run tool. And if I press 2, I'm going to use the classic satin. Super quick, super simple.
Just keep digitizing while I'm talking, Ken. But those
Perfect.
of you who have been in the inner circle, I guess, team, which is the 1,000 users that we've been working with, we've been really big on promoting the hotkeys, so much so that we've even assigned hotkeys to some, I guess, other hardware options that are out there because they make you quick, and I mean quick. So that's, yeah. So being able to just toggle, because if you're using mainly running stitches and the classic satin, then I'm assuming you might be using the runs to travel between objects, right? Is that kind of what you're going to do with the
That's
runs?
pretty much it. So right now,
Awesome.
as you can see what I'm doing, I'm going to enable the 3D view so it's easier to see. And now we're going to do black, but I've chosen red so it's easier for you guys to see the shapes that I'm creating. And I'm just kind of going around. I'm not really following any rules. I'm sorry, John. I'm kind of breaking them all right now by just going around and adding a couple of shapes here and there to define the skeleton. So you can see I'm using the run tool. I'm pressing left click just to create new points all over the place. And here I'm just going to return as best as I can. I'm not being perfect at all with any of these shapes, and I'm just going to press enter right here. So if I were to go back now to the classic satin, and I create by clicking left and right, so point, counterpoint, I press enter, the amazing, amazing smart join will take care of the start and stop. So I created this shape, then I can just go ahead and maybe let's start over here. And I'm kind of imagining a couple of these shapes, which it isn't necessarily the best, but again, this is a very nice and artistic style design. So we don't really have to worry so much about it being perfect. And again, I'm just switching between the run and the classic satin to create a couple of these. My goal is always to connect everything. As you can see, we only have one trim so far, which means that there are no jumps at all.
There's no trims. Yep, exactly. It's going to kind of have that one trim is registered at the very beginning of the design.
Yep.
And I can see right now where you join between those two classic satins because you actually went into the defaults of the trim and changed it from 3 to 10. Then even if that was like 3.2 millimeters between those connections, now it is going to only have a stitch connecting them and not a jump and trim.
That's right. Just so you know, guys, I am working using a mouse right now, mouse and keyboard. So yes, playing video games does help a lot with being able to be a little faster with digitizing on a mouse, but both are possible, both with pen and mouse.
For
And
sure. And
here,
actually, We did actually have a little bit of a discussion, Ken, because Ken and I actually are learning from each other. But Ken, as he said, he's been digitizing with a mouse more than he has a pen. And my argument was, well, I'm just so much faster when I use a pen. And then I sat there and watched Ken actually digitize with a mouse, and I was, I guess, a Australian term, gobsmacked. I was amazed at how fast you are, Ken. So.
That's it. We gotta play video games, John.
Yeah, I'll lose for sure. No competition.
Okay, so the right now here I'm kind of going now into the skull, and again, whenever I'm digitizing this kind of designs, I'm really not being picky with the like where I'm going. And again, the smart join just helps so much because let's say for example I finish here and I realize wait, there's no more like black colors that I can really connect to, but there is the teeth right here. There is this part over here. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna switch back to the run tool, do a couple of these teeth. And again, I'm already so zoomed in. John, I'm sorry, I still do the scrolling zoom.
That's all right. You're
But
zoomed in at exactly 424%.
424%, that's right. And I'm just gonna quickly create those teeth like that. I'm just going to take advantage once again of the smart join to create that little part. And here, by pressing left and right, I try to do it in a way as fast as possible because otherwise I kind of start thinking too much about where I'm putting all the points. So I just created those two shapes right here. And then here I see I can maybe add a couple of these with a run tool. And again, I'm just pressing 1 and 2 and enter to switch back and forth between the tools. I
Mm.
love the hotkeys so much. They're very fun to use. So here I'm
Yeah,
just pressing enter. Uh-huh.
yeah. What I find amazing is you're actually creating this design using, I guess, two of the simplest tools that we have in the software, right? The
Yes,
classic
that's
and the
right.
run. And you're also using, as far as drawing tools are concerned, because we do have the freehand tool, we have the line tool, we have the Bezier, and we have the fast draw, which all of these have their place. But you're using the most simplistic tool that we have in our toolbox, which is the line tool as well. And
Yep.
you're only using straight lines. You're not even
Yep.
using curves. That's
Nope,
awesome.
I'm not using curves at all. So now I would say I'm pretty much done with the black outline. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna select all of it and I'm gonna switch it to black. Now it obviously looks a little bit weird right now. So if I had the backdrop, that still looks very weird. But one of the things that I've learned with digitizing is you do have to trust the process, like with any
Yeah,
art. So
for sure.
now that I've done the black color, what would you suggest I do?
I mean, it looks like you're building your I guess colors backwards,
Hmm.
and or you could resequence them. Personally, what I would have probably done, I'm just trying to guess here. I mean, I might do the white right now, just so I
Hmm.
have my base, and that way I know that my base is going to line up to all of the black outlines that you've created. And
Yep.
then I might go in and start doing the blending, and I would probably do the blending from the light brown to the dark brown. And I think
Yep.
that's what's great about you and I, Ken, is when we teach lessons in the inner circle, and when we have a whole bunch of lessons coming up,
Yep.
we do different pieces of art and we give two different approaches. So tell
That's
me what
right.
you're going to do, Ken.
So you're right in terms of color. I am gonna use white. That so you got it right. But what I'm gonna do is I'm using the white now as a highlights. So now that I've done the shadows or I've done the black, now I'm gonna go to the brightest color. And that's just again, you're so right when it comes to the preference. So for me, I think it's just the easiest to find the lightest spots once I've identified where the darkest spots are at. Now here you can see I'm using my mouse, kind of like what you do with the pen where you just go back and forth. You put your input points, but I'm doing that with a mouse. So it's very similar to utilizing a tablet. And here I'm just trying to identify the most common or the brightest spots in the whole design. And I'm just switching back and forth again with the inclinations, or sorry, with the classic satin as well as the run tool. And to avoid having any trims, I'm doing my best to connect everything.
Yeah, no worries. There was a question here, and actually, I'll ask you a question. Then I have a question here from somebody within the chat.
Yep.
Is that I guess a standard practice you do? You do the like the darkest and the lightest, and then fill in between the two. Is that something like a standard practice that you use? Like
That's a
highlights,
good
obviously
question.
the darkest color, but now I see you're doing the highlights of the lightest color. So is that
Yeah,
something that you generally kind of
I think I've always done that. I don't know. I just find it easiest because, again, with the software, we have the ability to resequence the colors. So to me, I always like to identify, especially when it has to do with designs that have a satin outline. It's just easier to figure out where the satin outlines are, so you know your limits, and then you create the basis after. So yes, it would be that way. Now, this is what it looks like so far. We pretty much
cool?
have done the neck. And what I'm going to do next is I'm going to create these parts right here. Again, it doesn't have to be perfect because I am going to be adding another base after this.
I will also say, and this is something that we will eventually have kind of fixed in one of the future builds. There is a long red line that I see there, Ken, and I've
Yep,
kind of gotten used to seeing that because when you turn the true when you turn the true view off, you won't necessarily see it. Turn
yep.
it back on, okay, and then go in closer. Yeah, and that long red line right there, that
Hmm.
generally is something that is appearing only in 3D mode when you're going from one color to the next,
Hmm.
right? So, anyways, I just wanted to point that out there in case somebody thinks that it's,
Part of the
I know you
design.
do, yeah, part of the design. So it will not be there when it's done. Now,
Yep.
one of the questions that I had is, and actually, let's see if this works. Okay, I guess RV had asked, can we see please the technology setup Ken is using? Pretty please. Well,
Yep.
Ken's actually going pretty old school on this. You are obviously using a pretty fast computer, but in reality, you are just using a mouse,
Yep.
right?
So I can show you
So
guys. I'm using this mouse right here, which is just left and right. It does have two buttons, but I haven't even programmed them. And then a standard keyboard, so it's nothing special. And when we're embroidering this, I'll take a second to also show you guys all of that. So, oh, let me
awesome.
just redo.
Okay.
Let's see, where do we last leave off? I think we were here, but I don't really want this last point. So I'm just going to delete that one and put it somewhere there. Now, I am kind of cheating right now, John, because there's really no white anywhere around here. But again, because my goal, especially when you have a single needle machine, you don't want to be trimming and jumping all over the place. So this right here is just kind of like a tiny little connection that you won't really see on your final design, but it's going to save you so much time. And
Awesome.
here,
And I guess we could point out that we know that you're going to be resequencing these after, right? I mean,
yes,
as far as the
yes,
color, yeah. And I do
that's
that
right.
all the time as well. A lot of times I will digitize the fill first or somewhere through the design, and then I will resequence it under to the first, I guess, color or wherever it needs to be so that it actually goes in place. So that's the beauty of software today is you can create, layers, so to speak, and then adjust the layers as you're moving forward or anytime during the process.
Yep. Now, what I'm doing right here is just going around like randomly. I know I said there was no white here, but sometimes I just get these like panics in my hand where I have to start clicking everywhere and add stitches wherever I can. So that's kind of what's happening right now. Is I'm imagining a couple more highlights. So guys, don't be scared. Feel free to put points randomly wherever you want. See, I've already put a couple points here, but I'm just gonna go back, and it's okay because we're meant to break some of these rules, and I've decided, you know what, we're going to finish that stitch right there. So again, I'm going to now disable my backdrop, and it looks a little weird, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring that white that we just created, and this is what it should look like when I bring the black color back. So
Awesome.
still looking a little weird, but should look a little bit nicer. Moving
Now,
on.
another question we have, can keep going
Yep.
while we do this. Somebody is asking, is this beginner friendly as far as the software is concerned?
Yes, I would say this falls into the category of beginner friendly. And the reason why I believe this is beginner friendly is because there is so much space for any mistakes because you're just being extra artistic with your designs. It's not like you're trying to create a logo where you need to be extremely accurate. Instead, you can just kind of like you can see I wasn't being perfect with any of my outlines, and it's still going to come out pretty good. Hoping it
Yeah.
comes out pretty good, but we're going to see soon.
For sure. And I think sketch work or any type of digitizing like that is because, nobody sees the original artwork. You can
Yep,
have, little flares of artistic merit in there, and nobody's going to see the original, and you're going to be more than likely happy with the results. So I think
that's
this
right.
type of design is very, very beginner friendly.
Yep.
Somebody is also saying, can you explain your angles? So, and I'm
That
guessing when I say angles, I'll set you up for answering this. You're using the classic satin, right? So,
that's right.
how are angles determined?
So when it comes, this is the classic satin. It is one of my favorite tools, combining it with the smart join. And what it is it's a point counterpoint system. So you press your left button on your mouse and then you do a counterpoint. So this is basically top and down. So if I were to create my next point counterpoint, now this from this point to the bottom one, it's setting the inclinations. So now, for example, if I set my point counterpoint and I were to press enter, you can see that the angle of this shape changes. So it was here first. This is one of the inclinations, and here is the second one. Now, the reason
Yeah,
why I love this tool so much is because it makes it super easy for me to change the width of the shape. And because in my mind, I already know where I want the point and counterpoint to go, it's just saving time. For example,
yeah. Let's not get you off track. Go back to the design, Ken, and I'll fill in those blanks.
sounds good.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, for sure. Because using the point counterpoint, you're basically putting your inclinations in as you're creating the objects based on that, point counterpoint. It's kind of like the hands of a ladder. I always say when you look at a ladder, you have these little, arms across the ladder that you can kind of climb up. Well, those little lines are your, point counterpoints. And if you want a ladder that's going to really mess you up, turn all those, uh, horizontal lines that you use to climb on angles. So that's basically what you're doing is you're creating angled lines on a ladder, and that's going to create the direction of the stitches.
Yep.
But it does make it super, super fast as you're creating things.
Yep. And then for the run, I'm just left clicking. You can right click as well to create curves, but I just find that because I'm using a mouse, it is much faster to just create more points. Because we also have automatic settings that, as long as I'm not going too close to one another in terms of those stitch points, it should be okay.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
that's
there are stitch filters built within the software, and actually, we even have a kind of a filter because if Ken were to use a right click, which is a curve point for a running stitch, a lot of times what happens is you end up getting shorter stitches than you have asked for in your properties. But
hmm
we do have a magical button in our settings called cord gapping, which will help assist in those scenarios as well. So, I
yep,
mean, somebody asked, is this software, beginner friendly? Yes, it is, because we have a whole bunch of features that are built in that are kind of like autopilot.
yep,
You can fly without crashing, so to speak.
yep.
But if you want to turn off the autopilot, there is a ton of settings that allow you to get back in control.
For example, just to that point right now, you can see that I finished this stitch right here. This is where the scissors are at right now. So if I were to have smart join on and I created the shape from this side, so I'm just going to go from here down there, you can see I've created now two trims. And that's because the smart join takes care of the start, which is where your stitches start, and the stop, which is right here. So now I'm just going to delete that shape because I don't want it, and I'm going to turn on a smart join on. I'm going to do exactly the same thing, recreate that shape, but the program is going to take care of doing that start and stop for me. So it just saves so much time. So thank you, John, for thinking about that tool.
Oh, no worries. Hey,
I
yeah, I
love
mean,
the smart join.
this is all the stuff that I dreamed of years ago that I wish were in programs, and luckily, Pulse Tajima being as innovative as they are, they've been around for decades. We were able to use tools and features that they've developed. So we didn't reinvent the wheel. They already had all this stuff developed. But the good news is they allowed us to I guess, kind of modify the engine a little bit. You know what I mean?
hmm
That's
Yep.
been the fun part, right, Ken? Because we're like, oh, I wish it could do this, or it would be
Yep.
really easy if it did this. And that's what I think is different about our program, and what makes it user friendly is we've kind of looked really deeply into all of these features that have been available for, as long as digitizing software has been developed, which is, 40 years in the making. And we've been able to kind of tweak it to our liking.
That's right.
Somebody asked, will the software produce PES files? And that is for brother and baby lock machines.
Yep.
And yes, it will. I mean, any embroidery machine that's out there, we do have a file format that will speak your machine's, language. So we have all 31 flavors, so to speak. Uh, Also, quilting machine format. So if you have a long arm quilting machine, we actually have formats that output to that as well.
I think I'm kind of doing a little overkill right here, John. You got to stop me. I'm becoming a digitizing addict.
Well, I'll turn you off when we start hitting that point where we need to move on. I'll say, okay, Ken, but I'm thinking you safely have about 13 more minutes.
Oh,
Are you
that's
gonna are you gonna
perfect.
are you gonna run this design?
I am gonna run this design,
Okay,
and
perfect.
guys, this is I'm digitizing this in real time right now. I am also going to run it in real time. So good thing that we have that extra time. And now that I finished this little part right here, I think I'm just gonna make it a little bit darker. Here we have a bunch of colors. And if you guys didn't know, we also have a bunch of different brands of thread. So even if I don't want to utilize the colors that are down here, I'm probably going to switch this to Polynesian 40 because that's the one that we use the most. And we're going to switch it to this right here. Is that a little too dark? Nah, I think it's okay for now. Even for this black one, maybe we can make it a little bit lighter to like a dark gray or something like that. And even the white one, we can just switch back to white. Now, this looks really weird, and that's because, again, we want to re-sequence the whole design. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab this and bring it all the way to the top, which means that now the brown is going to stitch out first, then the white, and then the black. But we still have one more
Okay.
color, and that is going to be the highlights. So I'm going to bring back my backdrop. But before I do anything for this one, because it is the backdrop, I want to change the density. So maybe 0.6, or is that a little too much? We're gonna find out. And let me just change the color to a light brown, almost cream or peachy. I think this one's pretty good right here. And I'm gonna do exactly the same thing that I did, but instead of just going randomly, I'm gonna use this more of as a fill. And here I can just kind of go around, start filling these shapes. Again, this isn't meant to be perfect. So even if the shape isn't, or the black outline is going inside a little bit or out, and again, that has to do with push and pull compensation. So for example, right here, I'm just going to delete. Maybe I can turn this into two different shapes, taking advantage once again of the smart join. I don't really have to think so much about where I start and stop these shapes as long as they're close to one another. So here, I'm just going to create
Now
this shape
I'm
over
gonna
here.
let you keep going, Ken. Jennifer has a few questions she's gonna pump out real quick.
Awesome.
Well,
Yeah.
awesome.
Robin was asking, does it matter which format you import?
Robin was asking, does it matter which format you import? And I'm guessing that is in relation to the artwork.
Yep.
Our software can import, I guess, raster images. It can import like standard PNGs, JPEGs, a whole list of them that you can import. But we also have the ability to import vector file formats as well, SVG, and that can speed things up, but also can confuse things sometimes. But
Yep.
you can bring in all different types of formats.
That's right.
Devin is asking, does the program work with Mac?
Devin was asking, does the program work with Mac? And I saw that one a whole bunch of times. At this point, it is not native to Mac, but I will say that the platform, the base platform that our software is built on, is actually a platform that we will eventually be able to work native to Mac. We do not have a timeline on that as of yet because it is a much bigger project, but it is something that we do have planned in the future.
Sue was asking, does this not run on an iPad Pro?
Somebody was asking if this runs on an iPad Pro. No, it does not. we have a program called the Design Doodler, which looks kind of similar to our digitizing software. It was our first software release. And that one does actually run on I guess, accompanying free iPad app, but it is not a digitizing program. So the complexity of the stitch processor and everything digitizing software has to do, I don't think at this point or anytime soon will we ever have one that runs on on an iPad.
Now that I've created the base, I've decided that I want to go with a 0.8 millimeter density. Now, the reason is because one, I don't want to have a bulletproof design. Number two is artistic. And number three is because I do want to add a parallel underlay. Now, because we don't really need to have too much density, I've said it, or I've increased the density to 4 millimeters, so it's not too many stitches underneath. So all I have to do once I finish this base, I'm gonna bring it all the way to the top, and now we have the design.
That is pretty cool. That
So,
is awesome. Okay.
yeah.
Somebody did not believe that you were using a mouse, and I did have to verify that you are using a mouse.
When I finish embroidering this, I'll show you guys the setup for this design.
So as you can see there, Ken is doing underlay within all of those objects. So those are the objects that he actually asked the software to assign underlay. I don't know if Ken has audio on right now as he is. Oh, there you are. Are you back, Ken?
It is I. Yes, I am here.
Okay, cool. I didn't know if you'd have audio when you switch cameras.
Yep.
Awesome.
And well, I didn't even check to see if there were any trims at all, like before exporting this design. So we're gonna find out.
The question was, does the software only work for a multi-needle machine, or can you use this on a home single needle machine, Ken?
It works for single needle machines as well. And guys, I came from a single needle machine in SC600, so I know the struggle of switching threads constantly, which is why one of my missions whenever I'm creating a design is to try and trim as little as possible, change colors as little as possible, like with this design. 4 trims, 4 color changes, and Bob's your uncle.
Awesome. Actually, my uncle's name was Jim, but anyways, I totally understand.
Here it is. I'm just trying to make sure you guys are in focus. So that's the design.
That is great. I mean, that is awesome. And I guess do our little test. What do you do whenever you finish a design, Ken? That's it. You know, I mean, I am just as concerned about what I see on the front as what I feel on the back. And that is amazing because do you feel any hard stitches there, Ken?
Nope, none at
No.
all.
Awesome. And when you turn it around, what do you see?
I done design. Woo!
A skull. Yeah, I see a skull. So anyway, let us know what you guys think. Ken, you are
That's what it looks like from
that.
up. That's my digitizing setup. Can you guys hear me? That's
Yep.
the setup right there, and that's the keyboard, and that's the mouse.
That's the mouse. And that is a pen monitor. So when you do want to try to, digitize slowly like me, you pick up the pen, right?
I don't think I'll ever be as fast as you, John, with a pen.
No,
There's
yeah, maybe with a pen, but I'll never be as fast as you with a mouse, Ken.
Wait, are you in this corner right here?
No, you're good.
That's you right there,
Awesome.
right?
Yep.
Okay.
We appreciate you guys joining us today. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Have a good day. Oh, and don't forget to subscribe over there. See you guys later.